Sis, do you have a minute to look at this?
Yeah, what's up, Amber?
I just got a message from Mrs. Langford. She sent a video.
Mrs. Langford, after all these years? I froze, still holding my half finished cup of hot coffee in the small kitchen of my apartment in Charleston, South Carolina. The phone buzzed again in my pocket, like it was burning through the fragile piece I had just barely built for myself. Amber, my new roommate, shoved her phone into my hand. The name Mrs. Langford flashed across the screen, a memory buried so deep that just seeing it made my chest tighten. My hands trembling, I opened the video. No greeting, no explanation. Just one line. "I'm so sorry about your parents. I can't believe what I saw today." My heart skipped a beat. The video started with an image of St. Paul's Church, the place tied to my most dazzling Christmas Eve memories as a kid. The camera slowly zoomed in on the podium where two people stood. My parents. Mom, wearing a black lace dress with a string of pearls around her neck, gently dabbing her eyes with a white lace handkerchief like she was at a rehearsed performance. Dad, looking solemn, his hands shaking as he held a sheet of paper. Behind them, a casket. And next to that casket was a large framed photo of me, Ava Sullivan, surrounded by white flowers. I froze. I couldn't believe my own eyes. I scrubbed back and forth through the video. But no, it wasn't a hallucination. My father was reading a eulogy for me. Ava was always a troubled girl, but we loved her with all our hearts. We did everything we could. My vision blurred. My hand clutched the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't dead. I was standing right there, breathing, alive, renting a tiny apartment on my own hard-earned paycheck. But in their eyes, in the eyes of the world I used to belong to, I was a corpse, a name to be mourned, a past to be erased. The brutal truth slapped me in the face. This wasn't some stupid misunderstanding. This was deliberate, a perfectly rehearsed play, complete with fake tears and cold hugs. I slumped to the kitchen floor, the phone slipping from my hand. The air seemed to freeze in my lungs. Why? Why me? I had left quietly when they disowned me. I had chosen to disappear. And yet they hadn't just thrown me away. They had buried me. It didn't stop there. My mother spoke about the tragic accident that supposedly took my life. An accident that never happened. I was never in an accident. I never vanished without a trace. I never spiraled into despair like they made up. And what triggered me the most? They weren't even sad. Not a single crack in their voices. Not a single genuine choke of grief. Just a mechanical performance. A flawless plan to erase me from their lives. The people I once called family, the ones I thought would always be my safe haven, hadn't just turned their backs on me. They had turned Ava Sullivan into a memory to be forgotten. The biggest lesson I learned that moment? Not everyone who wears the title family truly loves you. Sometimes they're the very ones who will shove you off the edge just to keep their own surface clean and polished. And when you dare to stand up, they'll do everything in their power to make you disappear. I stared at the screen again, the church packed with mourners, old friends, teachers, neighbors, all dressed in black, bowing their heads before my photo. And yet, for 3 whole years, not one of them had sent me a text. Not one had tried to find me. In that moment, what I felt wasn't sorrow. It was a coldness that sank to my bones. I was no longer the fragile Ava of the past. I had learned how to live in the shadows, with no shoulders to lean on, no applause, no comforting arms. And if they wanted to believe I was dead, so be it. But I would come back to life in a way they could never control. My story from that moment on would no longer be about pain. It would be about resurrection, about how a soul buried alive learned how to dig her way out, prouder, stronger, and untouchable. I knew that if I wanted to understand how everything had rotted to this extent, I had to turn back time, had to face the nightmare I had tried to lock away deep in my heart all these years. It all started 3 summers ago, in the sun-drenched kitchen of the house on the outskirts of Charleston, the place I once thought would always be home. That kitchen, instead of smelling like fresh-baked pastries or echoing with country music, was thick with the suffocating air of accusations that day. Elena just made a mistake, Ava, my mother hissed, her voice cold as steel, her hand gripping the glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. I didn't do anything wrong, I swear. Check the books again, every trace. I broke down crying, but my words dissolved into the heavy air of the room. The more you defend yourself, the more pathetic you look. My father cut me off coldly, his eyes piercing right through me. It's better for one daughter to fall than the whole family to go down, my mother shouted, each word cutting like a knife. I can still remember that moment clearly, the feeling of the ground crumbling beneath my feet, like standing on thin ice and hearing the first splintering crack from below. The truth? The one who stole the money from the family business account was Elena, the little sister I'd given everything to, from my favorite toys to summer scholarship spots. Elena, with her tears on command and a smile as sweet as brown sugar, was the family's golden child, the angel who could do no wrong in their eyes. So when $80,000 disappeared from the joint business account, all it took was a slight raise of Elena's eyebrows, a whispered, "I don't know," and all the blame came crashing down on me. I was thrown out onto the streets in less than 24 hours, without a word of explanation to anyone, without a chance to defend myself. The name Ava Sullivan was erased from every family letter, every Christmas gathering, every family reunion. I tried to fight. I sent dozens of messages, long emails, attached with invoices, bank statements, proof that it was Elena who took the money. I begged them to listen, to double-check, to let me speak. But all I received was silence. A cold, crushing silence that made it feel like I had never existed at all. Do you know what the worst feeling in the world is? It's not being hated. It's not being punished. It's being treated like you never existed. The people who once held me, sang me to sleep, taught me to walk and talk. With just one lie, they deleted me from their lives like erasing a flawed photo off their phone. Gradually, every other door slammed shut too. Mutual friends stopped replying to my texts. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Relatives seen my messages but never responded. I became a ghost who was still breathing. In that moment, curled up on the rickety bed in the cheapest rental in the city, I learned a lesson no school ever teaches. Blood doesn't guarantee love. Family doesn't make you immune to betrayal. What happened to Elena? She went on living her best life as if she hadn't stolen everything from me. Lavish vacations, Instagram posts with the caption, "Living my best life," sweet captions about a family that always believed and supported me. And me? I pieced together the shards of my broken life. I learned to make coffee like a pro, took a job at a small cafe by the Charleston coastline. I cut my hair short, changed my phone number, stopped posting on social media. I lived truly off the grid, like a character from a survival series. But no matter how far I ran, no matter how much I changed, that wound still sat deep inside my chest, throbbing, aching, never healing, like a curse, like a bone broken in the wrong place, aching every time the weather changed, reminding me, don't forget, never forget. And on that fateful night when I watched that funeral video, I understood. The worst thing my family ever did to me didn't stop at throwing me out. Number. They wanted to make sure the world forgot me too. But I swear, they will remember me in ways they never saw coming. After that suffocating night, with the funeral video replaying in my head like a glitching movie, I had no choice but to start digging deeper. If my family had managed to stage a perfect funeral, I knew for sure what they were hiding couldn't just be shame. That urge turned into action. That night, under the dim light of my desk lamp, I opened my old laptop and typed the first desperate search into the bar: Charleston Citizen Records Lookup. It took less than 5 minutes for my worst fear to become reality. My name, Ava Sullivan, appeared coldly on the screen, listed under the deceased. Date of death, July 16th. Cause, overseas traffic accident. Status, death certificate issued. I held my breath. My fingers trembling, I scrolled down to the bottom of the page. Document ID, ARF 91327. Approved, archived, verified. This was no longer about them being too angry and disowning me. No longer about them making up stories out of embarrassment. This was a deliberate plan, with official stamps and signatures. They had killed me, legally. My mind spun, like someone had just shoved me off the top of a skyscraper. I clutched my head, struggling to breathe, scrambling to find a shred of reason in the chaos swelling inside me. Why? Why go to such extremes? The answer slashed through my mind like a blade. Money, control, reputation cleansing. Once I was dead, they could take all the inheritance and assets still under my name. They could rewrite the family history in a way no one would ever question. A daughter who embarrassed them? Dead. A blemish? Wiped clean. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part went ice cold. I realized then, all these years, I had been living under the delusion that I was just the victim of a big misunderstanding. But the truth was, I had become the sacrificial pawn they used to save the perfect illusion of the family. I couldn't just sit there. I decided to act. I tore through my personal files. Valid passport, social security card, employment contract from the cafe, annual tax filings, apartment lease agreements, utility bills, proof that I had lived, worked, existed, day after day. I sat there stacking the documents on the table, brick by brick, building the first foundation of the legal battle ahead. And I swore, this time I would fight to the end. I contacted the Charleston Civil Records Office. The call connected after 3 rings. Hello, this is the Civil Records Office. How may I assist you? My name is Ava Sullivan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I found out I'm listed as deceased. A dead silence. Then the sound of frantic typing. Please hold. The line went dead silent. But I didn't need more evidence. They knew. They had always known. My life had now turned into a real survival game, where every move had to be cold, calculated, precise. One wrong step, and I would be erased from the system forever. And worse, if I didn't counterattack in time, I wouldn't just lose my identity. I would lose the chance to reclaim the truth. I stared at the laptop screen, the blue light casting a ghostly pallor across my face. A thought flashed, sharp, fierce. If they had staged my death, I would expose their lies with my own hands. And this time, I wouldn't just come back, I would bring a whole storm with me. I knew I needed bigger evidence than the trivial papers piling up on the table. I needed something undeniable, something that couldn't be twisted. And my gut told me the only place to look. Elena. Elena was never good at keeping her victories to herself. Every success, every triumph, every second of being celebrated, she flaunted it all over social media like the world existed just to clap for her. I opened Instagram. Elena Sully's account was now set to public. A dazzling world exploded before my eyes. Pristine white wedding dresses, a 5-tier wedding cake, champagne flowing like silver streams, diamond bracelets sparkling under the afternoon sun. I frowned, scrolling slowly through each photo. And then, among the flashy collection, I found what I was looking for, the naked truth. In one picture taken during the wedding reception, Elena and her husband stood under blazing golden lights, each holding a microphone, laughing brightly. Behind them, my father, raising a glass of wine, his mouth forming words. Caption, "To the daughter who always made us proud." My hand clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Not a single mention of me. Not a single word of sorrow. Not even a "wish Ava could have been here." I had been replaced. Not just crossed out, but erased to make room for someone new. I should have stopped there. I should have shut off the phone, locked away my heart, and let everything rot quietly in the dark. But I didn't. I kept digging. And in another group photo, amid laughter and sparkling glasses of wine, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the wedding gift table, neatly placed among the other presents, was a small leather-bound folder, embossed with the name of a family trust, Sullivan Family Trust. A gut instinct pushed me to search that trust name in Charleston's business database. My heart nearly stopped when the results popped up. Current account holder, Elena Sullivan. Transfer date, December 25th. Previous beneficiary, Ava Sullivan, deceased. I closed my eyes, feeling like the world had just exploded around me. That was the entire college fund my grandparents had left for me. That was the startup money they had hoped would help me build my life. That was everything I'd once thought of as a backup for hard times. And now it was sitting neatly in the hands of the person who had stolen everything from me, smiling brightly in a pure white wedding dress as if she hadn't thrown me to the bottom of the pit. The naked truth lay bare before me like a deep, gaping wound. They didn't erase me out of shame. They erased me out of greed. My family, the very ones who once held me close during the storms of childhood, had decided that a surviving Ava was worth less than a deceased Ava. And that fabricated death, that was their ticket to strip me of everything I had. I sat there frozen, the cold blue glow of the screen reflecting off my rigid face. Inside, there was no more pain, only absolute clarity, like someone had finally flipped the last switch, like the final mist had lifted, leaving behind the brutal, naked truth. If I hesitated any longer, they would continue living with their version of reality forever. If I stayed silent, I would be a ghost forever in my own life. I clenched the phone tighter, a silent fire igniting behind my eyes. Fine, Elena. Fine, Mom and Dad. If you chose to bury me alive to build your little kingdom, then get ready to see the very daughter you tried to erase become the earthquake that will tear down everything you built. This time, I won't just reclaim my name. I'll reclaim the truth and force the world to witness it. The next morning, when the city of Charleston was still shrouded in a thin mist, I stood in front of a small law office tucked away deep in the historic district. My hand clutched the stack of documents I had carefully organized through the night, a storm rising in my chest with no room left for hesitation. I was no longer Ava Sullivan trembling before the slammed gates of my family. I wasn't here to beg. I was here to declare war. The office door jingled softly as I pushed it open. A young receptionist looked up, her eyes widening slightly when she saw my icy expression. "I want to see a lawyer specializing in civil complaints and financial fraud," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "Please have a seat, Miss Sullivan. Ava Sullivan." I emphasized each word, like smashing the fake tombstone they had erected for me. Just 15 minutes later, I was sitting across from a young lawyer named Connor Hayes. Slightly messy hair, rolled up sleeves, sharp eyes like someone who lived and breathed long legal battles. He flipped through my documents silently for 10 straight minutes. When he finally looked up, there was something different in his gaze. "Let me get this straight," Connor said, his voice low. "Your family faked a death certificate, transferred your inheritance to someone else, and staged a fake funeral?" "Yes," I replied flatly, "and I have proof for every step they took." Connor exhaled slowly, folding his hands together. "You understand, Ava, this isn't just a simple civil case," he said. "If we play this right, it's a string of charges. Financial fraud, falsifying government documents, document forgery, even breach of fiduciary duty within a family relationship." I nodded. My heart pounded in my chest, not out of fear, but because for the first time in 3 long years, I was being heard. "We'll start by filing a motion to revoke the death certificate," Connor continued, "along with a fraud complaint and a petition to freeze the assets transferred illegally. Are you ready to fight this to the end?" "Ready." No hesitation, no second thoughts. Connor smiled slightly, the kind of smile worn by someone who just saw a warrior step into their office. "Then, Ava Sullivan, let's rewrite your story." Walking out of the law office, I felt strangely weightless, not because I had won, but because I had finally chosen not to run anymore. I walked down the old cobblestone sidewalk, morning sunlight filtering through the trees, my heart full of swirling plans for the battle ahead. And then, like a knife twist to the heart, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number, just one line. "They're holding a memorial for you next Sunday at St. Paul's." I froze, feeling the world around me hold its breath. They weren't just pretending I was dead to grab the money. They were about to turn it into a grand event, a public performance, a memorial to wipe away any lingering doubts forever. I stared at the message on my screen, my mind spinning faster than a summer tornado. And then a crazy idea ignited instantly. If they had planned a memorial for me, why shouldn't I show up myself? No warning, no permission, no explanations. Just me, flesh and blood, walking straight into their perfect play, ripping down the curtain of lies with my undeniable existence. I wouldn't need to scream. I wouldn't need to beg. I would just stand there, breathing, alive, staring straight into their eyes, letting them know the person they tried to bury had come back, not to ask for forgiveness, but to demand justice. On Sunday morning, Charleston was blanketed in a silvery gray. Thick clouds hung heavily in the sky, as if even nature itself was holding its breath before the upcoming ceremony. I stood across the street from St. Paul's Church, my long black coat draped around me, sunglasses covering nearly half my face. The crowd had gathered, familiar faces who once smiled at me at family parties, even people I thought had long forgotten me. They quietly filed in, dressed in black, holding white flowers, exchanging sorrowful embraces. I clenched the hem of my coat. No trembling, no hesitation. They wanted to mourn for a dead Ava Sullivan? Fine. But this time, they would mourn their own betrayal. As the sound of the organ floated from inside the church, I crossed the street. Every step struck the ground with the weight of 3 forgotten years, of wounds that had never been allowed to heal. I pushed open the church doors, not hurriedly. The creak of the hinges echoed through the hall like a cold announcement. I was back. Everything froze. The music faltered. Heads slowly turned. Eyes widened in horror, staring as if seeing a ghost. I removed my sunglasses, letting my gaze meet the sea of pretense flooding the room. Right at the center, by the pulpit, stood my father, his face stiff, his hand gripping the eulogy he was about to read. My mother sat in the front row, clutching a handkerchief, her eyes wide with shock. Elena stood right beside her black dress clinging tightly to her frame, her hand gripping her pearl necklace as if it could shield her from the truth crashing down. I walked slowly down the aisle between the rows of pews. Each step echoed in the heavy silence, like the hammering on the fake tombstone they had built for me. A child's whisper broke the stillness. "Mom, isn't that her?" And with that, the silence shattered. Whispers, gasps, a few phones lifted, tiny red recording lights blinking, undeniable proof that I was alive, present, and standing right there facing them. I stopped just a few steps from the pulpit. I stared straight at my parents, the people who once called me their pride, before deciding I was the blemish to be cut away. My mother trembled, her lips moving as if to beg, as if to explain. My father couldn't say a word, his face pale as paper. Elena, with her eyes full of rage and panic, was the first to break the silence. You can't be," Elena gasped, her voice cracking. You're supposed to be dead." I smiled slightly, not kindly, not pityingly. "Sorry to ruin your script," I said, my voice ringing out, each word carving itself into the heavy air. "But sadly for you, Ava Sullivan is still alive." I pulled a folder from my coat pocket. Official documents, a valid passport, tax records, a rental agreement, notarized papers, and raised them high for everyone to see. "This is proof I was never dead," I continued. "No accident, no body, only lies." A man sitting mid-row, Uncle Henry, an old family friend, whispered in disbelief, "They lied to all of us?" I turned toward Elena, then locked eyes with my mother without blinking. "And everything you gained, the house, the trust fund, the assets, all built on a forged death certificate." I paused, letting the truth sink into every pale face. "Starting today," I said, my voice slicing like a blade, "everything you stole will be returned. Honor, freedom, and truth." No one moved. No one dared to breathe. I shoved the folder into my father's hands and turned sharply on my heel, walking away through the stunned, broken crowd. Behind me, murmurs started to rise. Whispers, hurried footsteps on the stone floor. The lies they had built for so long were beginning to crumble, and I, Ava Sullivan, was no longer a ghost. I was the truth they could never bury. 3 days after the day I shook St. Paul's, I sat in Connor Hayes' law office, feeling like someone who had just walked through a storm, drenched, exhausted, but alive. Connor placed a new thick file in front of me, stamped with a glaring red seal, civil and criminal lawsuit filing. He looked up, eyes filled with determination. "The lawsuit won't be easy," Connor said slowly. "Your family will definitely hire the best lawyers to fight back. They'll try to twist the truth, pull every delaying tactic in the book." I nodded, gripping the edge of the table tightly to keep myself from trembling under the flood of emotions. "I don't need easy," I said firmly. "I just need the truth." Connor smiled, the smile of a warrior who had just seen a new comrade step onto the battlefield. We filed the lawsuit at the Charleston courthouse, a motion to revoke the forged death certificate, a request to restore my legal identity, and a lawsuit against my family for asset fraud, document forgery, and exploitation of trust for personal gain. The court notification was sent out that very day, and within just 48 hours, a small earthquake began to ripple through the local media. Declared dead girl suddenly returns and sues her own family. My name, Ava Sullivan, for the first time in 3 years, reappeared in the real world, no longer just a rumor, no longer a fading shadow in someone's memory, but a living truth, undeniable. The day I officially signed the revocation of my death certificate, I wore a simple navy blue dress and the familiar black shoes that had carried me through so many hard roads. The court clerk looked at me, then at the thick stack of documents. After a confirming nod, he stamped the final seal onto the document. Ava Sullivan's death certificate, revoked. The sound of the stamp echoed like a victory anthem, a song only I could hear in my heart, but strong enough to shatter every invisible chain that had held me captive all these years. I stepped out of the courthouse, taking a deep breath. Charleston's air was still salty with the scent of the sea, but this time it no longer carried the smell of imprisonment. It carried the taste of freedom. The legal battle against my family didn't happen overnight, but every piece of evidence, every testimony, every tiny detail was stitched together like sharp needles threading the real story. Fake emails reporting my death, financial records showing illegal asset transfers, trust fund documents with unauthorized beneficiary changes, photos, congratulatory posts on social media that they once proudly flaunted, now turned into damning evidence against them. When the court announced acceptance of the lawsuit, ordering the freezing of involved assets and launching a criminal investigation, my parents and Elena could no longer pretend. Elena, in her expensive dress but with hollow eyes, was no longer the pampered princess she once was. My father, once the symbol of honor, now dodged everyone's gaze like a fugitive. My mother, who once proudly read my fake eulogy, now bowed her head low before the judge's bench. Justice never arrives immediately, but step by step, I could see it slowly moving toward me. A year later, in a small coffee shop in downtown Charleston, I sat by the large window, sipping a warm latte, my laptop open in front of me. A new email popped up. "Congratulations, Ava Sullivan. Your legal identity restoration is complete. All your rights and assets have been reinstated." I leaned back into my chair, closing my eyes for a pure, peaceful moment. I had died in their world, but I had brought myself back to life in my own world, no longer waiting for anyone's approval, no longer seeking love from those unworthy. Only me, strong, free, and fearless. Because sometimes you have to let an old part of yourself die to allow a new, more radiant part to be born. And I, Ava Sullivan, had finally chosen to live, not for anyone else, but for myself.